أحسنت brother. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا المصطفى الأمجد والمحمود الأحمد حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On behalf of Imam Hussein Islamic Center, I would like to welcome you all to tonight's program. And firstly, I would like to send my congratulations to the entire Muslim Ummah and our felicitations and salutations to our holy current Imam, Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, on the joyful occasion of the birth anniversary of Imam Jafar Al-Sadiq alayhi salam, and the best of creations, whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Holy Qur'an as a rahmah to mankind. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكُمْ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. He is Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Inshallah, there is a lot planned for tonight. There's a program with Anasheed, there's poetry, lucky door prizes, quizzes, and inshallah there'll be food at the end and some sweets, so there's a lot planned. And tonight's program will begin with another recitation with poetry, inshallah, by Brother Zak Alawi. Please welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Apologies, there's a delay in poetry, inshallah, that will be a bit later in the program. So I'll just go over some quick announcements, inshallah, for tonight before we begin with the lecture. Please keep your phone on silent throughout the program and ensure there's no recording throughout the program. Ensure no cars are parked illegally and that we're respecting our neighbors by not blocking their driveways. Please prioritize the chairs for the elderly or those with medical conditions that require a seat. This Sunday, so in 2 days' time, Imam Hassan Center has invited all of IHIC to their celebration for the birth of Nabi Muhammad. So that will be on the 22nd of September, beginning with Dhuhr prayers. Tafsir classes will be paused for about a month as Sheikh Denhavi will be traveling. But Dua Kumail will continue every Thursday, inshallah, at 7:45 p.m. For the well-being and quick reappearance of Imam al-Hujjah, please recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, on this blessed day, we don't forget those who are fighting on the front lines in defense of the religion of Allah and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. We request that everyone please recite Surah Al-Fatiha for all the shuhada in the recent attacks in Lebanon, in Palestine, in Yemen, in Palestine, in Iraq, and Pakistan, and all the mu'mineen and mu'minat, and all of our loved ones that have left this world. Please recite Surah Al-Fatiha with your loudest salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Qur'an, without a shadow of a doubt, in the lifestyle of Allah's Messenger, there is an exemplary example for you, those of you who believe in Allah and the last day. Inshallah, with that, please welcome our esteemed scholar, Sheikh Mohammed Mehdi, For the love of Nabi Muhammad, Imam Jafar Al-Sadiq, please recite 3 of your loudest salawats ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لعن ولا ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لقد من الله على المؤمنين إذ بعث فيهم رسولا من أنفسهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. Certainly Allah did confer great favor upon the believers when He sent among them a messenger from themselves, reciting to them His verses and purifying them and teaching them the book and wisdom, although they had been before in manifest error. Amanna billah, sadaqallahu al-aliyyul azim. The narrators, firstly, before we start, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The narrators of history are those in power. Regardless of who writes history or how it's written, the way it's dictated is by the ruling bodies, those that govern. One great example is, as Forbes magazine articulated, they had written the sad tragedy of Greta Thunberg. Okay, and what was her tragedy? If you remember 6 years ago, Greta was calling out, she was the poster child for the Western world and calling out, how dare you? And in the Forbes article, they returned the comment towards her and they said, how dare you? Why? Because Greta objected to what the governing bodies were doing. She called out against the malpractices of the ruling bodies with regard to the current Holocaust that's taking place. And all of a sudden, she's gone into the refuse of history. And she's only 21 years old. She's reached the summit, and went back down to below sea level in a space of 6 years. And this is how history works. You could become from hero to zero. It depends, for example, for those that are a bit older, those that have used CDs. Remember when we used to get our CDs and we used to burn the CD? What was the main program we used to use for burning CDs? It was called Nero. Why? Because Nero apparently burnt Rome. So it would say, there was a pun on it. It would say, You know, do we have those guys in the nosebleeds the whole day? All right. So anyway, so what would happen is when you put the CD in there, it would say "burning Rome," the pun as in burning Rome. But you know what? Historically, some people said that Nero burnt Rome, but other historians say this is all fabricated. Nero had nothing to do with burning Rome. So there was other opinions, however, these were drowned because the body that governed when history was written wanted that narrative to be heard. Just as you look at Islamic history, it's called, when you want to look the Islamic history when it came to sciences and technology and developments, what do they call it? The Dark Ages. Why? Because they bury that. They don't want to talk about it. Even to the point where Jordan Peterson actually said this explicitly. He said the reason why we don't like to mention the Byzantine Empire, because it's a punch in the face to Christianity. Because the Muslims defeated and destroyed this empire, so we never teach it at school. What are they doubling down on now? Do you hear what our government said? They're going to be doubling down on what? You're going to get a double serve of the Holocaust, in inverted commas. So now they really want people to go back into this because they want to teach you the narrative that they have. Now, you speak out, they defile you. That's it. You become into a villain, and this is the way history is. But no individual, historically, you go through all of history, no individual has been maligned like Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala. From the text of Bukhari to the text of satanic verses, you will find the most deplorable, derogatory commentary and fabrications attributed to the Messenger of God. The worst character that if you were to read these books, and they're all similar, don't think they're different, don't think one of them tries to, the historians at the time give you the worst description of the Prophet. That if you read about the Prophet, you'd think, why do they make this man so despicable? You know, there's a chapter in Bukhari, you know what it says? It's called Alladhina, it says the one, that the Prophet swore to and cursed, and they were not worthy of this. There's an actual chapter called that. That people the Prophet swore at and cursed that were not even worthy of this. One of them was an orphan girl. So you imagine you're reading this and you think, hold on, the Prophet was telling us in the Qur'an, فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. What are you doing to the orphan? You're not supposed to harm the orphan, and you are abusing because he does a dua against her. This is the history that people are reading. This fabricated and distorted history about the Messenger of God. And what happens here because of this, okay, and this existence and the Muslims' lack in telling people the reality about the Messenger of God. See, the Muslims, it's not really, this is part of my discussion. It's not really a segue, it's part of my discussion. But I'm going to move aside from this main subject before I talk about the character of the Messenger of God, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But if we say that the mercy of God is the Messenger of God, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, that you are nothing but, that we sent you, nothing for nothing except as a mercy to the world. Only, that's what you're sent for. You were sent as a mercy to the world. When we say the worlds, we don't mean humanity, we don't mean Muslims, only. We don't mean exclusively humans. It means everything that's called alam. Anything that we can call a world. Every kingdom that exists. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam was sent as a mercy to them. So if the Muslims are the Muslims, then why is it the Muslims live in the worst way? Situation of the Muslims, wherever you look around the world, the Muslims are always on the receiving end. No reprieve. Every time you try and get up, it's like every time you raise your head above the water to take in a deep breath, something falls on your head and you're under the water again. Why? The question people always ask. I'll tell you why. Imagine you purchase a pool and you say to yourself, all right, I'm not going to put any chlorine in this pool. And then you're going to get all these microscopic impurities. And what happens to the pool? Comes, you know, when you go in the street, you see those murky puddles. That's what your pool starts look like. It looks like some stagnant water. Then you go, all right, I'm going to put chlorine, but I'm not going to put a filter. Once again, as much chlorine you put in there, it's still going to have rotting organic material there because there's no filter in the water. You say, all right, I'm going to put chlorine, I'm going to put a filter, but I'm not going to have a fence. You know why in Australia it's compulsory to have fences? You know how many children drown? Because kids are attracted to water. They see water and they run towards water. They love water and they don't realize the dangers of water. How often do people, just to give you, you could be a momentary lapse. I'll tell you exactly why it's so important. This happened to me 2 days ago. I'm sitting next to my infant, sitting right near my infant. I got a message. I looked at the message, and then you have to focus because you need to understand. And then something just said, you know, switch off, go back. And I see my other child, my toddler, putting a cushion on the infant's face and suffocating him. You know what I mean? As you do. So I removed him at this point, but that was a momentary lapse. So these kids see there's no fence, whooshka. They're into the water, so I put up a fence. But because I have a fence and I've decided to go safe, then I say I'm not going to supervise these children. How often do you see on a floaty that even though the child's wearing a floaty, they should not be in the water without supervision? Notice all these things and you go, oh, I'll never buy in a pool. Look how many issues there are. But if I'm not working it, Islam is a religion. And if all the factors in Islam don't come together, it will be like Jamal ad-Din al-Afghani. Now, Jamal ad-Din Afghani was alive in the 19th century. And he said, the famous quote everyone says, he said, I went to the West and I saw Islam, but I did not see Muslims. And I went to the East, I saw Muslims, but I did not see Islam. This is the biggest problem. Forget about the Western world's foreign policy. Their foreign policy is what it is. I don't need to, we could be here all day talking about how they deal outside. But how do they deal internally is the situation. If you read the verse in the Qur'an, this is the last verse in Surah Al-Fatih. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم محمد رسول الله صلوا على محمد محمد رسول الله والذين معه أشداء على الكفار رحماء بينهم. That the Prophet is mentioned, he's the messenger of God. The people with him, al-Muslimin, the Muslims are what? Ashidda ala al-kuffar. They're stern and they're firm when it comes to those that are the unbelievers and against them. Ruhama'u bainahum. But between each other, they are what? merciful. You notice the Western world, if you're living in Australia, how does the government work with the people here, generally? It's clockwork. Things work properly. With the people, there's a system. There is corruption everywhere, but it's not like other countries. But when it comes to the enemy, you've got to take your hats off to them. When they're with the enemy, they have no mercy when it comes to the enemy. With their own people, they're good. The Muslims are different. The Muslim world, take a look at the way they deal with their own people. They treat them like rubbish. The Westerner walks into their country, they'll roll out the red carpet. You know, the white man's entered. They've come in again. Let's give them a show again. That's how they treat them. So you don't blame them the way that they are. And because the Muslims have failed to practice Islam as it is, they suffer the way that they are. The Messenger of God sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Says, سَيَأْتِي عَلَى النَّاسِ زَمَانٍ. There will come a time upon the people. He says, لَا يَبْقَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ إِلَّا رَسْمُهُ. The only thing that will remain of the Qur'an is its script, what's written. That's all. People read the Qur'an. That's it. You know, it's a majlis, let's read the Qur'an. Fatiha, read the Qur'an. You know, wedding, get the DJ. There's no more. There's no more discussion when it comes to this. And then the Messenger of God says, وَمِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ إِلَّا إِسْمُهُ. All that will remain of Islam is the name of Islam. Some will come, I'm a Muslim. Okay, why do I not see Islam upon you? So I'm a Muslim. Why do I not see Islam upon you? You say I'm a Muslim. What does it mean to be a Muslim? And this is why Muslims suffer. Where is the Islam? When people go overseas, they go to Islamic countries. You know, whenever I pick up someone from Ziyarat, they say, I love the shrines, but I'm glad I'm out of these countries. Why do they say that for? Why? Why do people have this view of Islamic countries? This is a question I need to ask. And this is the cause of the suffering of Muslims. And this is the reason they are like this. He says, وَمِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ إِلَّا اسْمُهُ يعني لا يبقى من الإسلام إلا اسمه يسمون وهم أبعد الناس من. That they name themselves as Muslims, but they are the furthest people from Islam. The Messenger of God says this. Because if Islam is practiced, Muslims will prevail. Why? You remember the hadith where Abu Salt al-Harawi narrates that Imam al-Rida alayhi salam told him what? He says to him, Rahimallah man ahya amrana, that hadith. Then he mentions in this hadith, فَإِنَّ النَّاسِ لَوْ عَلِمُوا مَحَاسِنَ كَلَامِنَا لَاتَّبَعُونَا. If the people knew the merits of our words, they would follow us. You think about this. People in the world, they're too worried about compromise. They're too worried, we're all one. No, brother. We're one in certain things. But when it comes to preaching Islam, you have to tell people what Islam is. Who Rasulullah was, who the enemies of Rasulullah are. Not sit there and confine, not sit there and, hide and confide amongst yourselves. When you're teaching people Islam, you need to teach Islam the way it is. Not sit there and say we're all one big happy family. You need to explain what Islam is. Because the reality is apparent. Wherever you go in the world, it's apparent. The same people that ran away from the wars, their followers are running away from wars. The same people that are fighting are the ones fighting. It's apparent. You don't need to sit there and you can see it. You know, we say in Lebanese, "Shams tala wa nas isha." It's there. What am I going to sit there and lie to myself? It's very apparent. Okay. The Muslims, today are an example of modern day Jahiliyyah, if you look at it like this. If you look, when we say Jahiliyyah and what Jahiliyyah is, so we have an understanding, they were living in the Jahiliyyah, they were living like scum, if you want to use that word. And the world has returned to Jahiliyyah. People have cut off relations again. People don't see relatives, they've cut off, and the problems augment. They get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they will just sit there and they'll justify why they don't talk. Sometimes when I'm trying to solve a problem between people, I say, yes, I understand, I see it from your perspective. I go, and I would have done what you did. And they say, see, so you understand me. I said, yes, but we're Muslims. He says, what does that mean? Okay, if we're no laws, yeah. Pull out your sword and start cutting heads. But we have laws. We have laws that govern us. We have laws. I want you to listen to this. I read this hadith. I've looked for it so many times I can't find it. But I'll just say it like this because I don't have it written down. But I've read it, not what someone told me. And it's in line with the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam says, if two brothers, we're not talking about blood brothers, we're talking about Muslims. He says if they are to come apart for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, فَإِنِّي خَصْمُهُمَا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Something along those lines. Taban, I'm paraphrasing because I couldn't find it. He said, I am their opposition on the Day of Judgment. So one man said, Yabna Rasulallah. He said, I understand this for the one that's at fault. What about the one in the right? You know what he said to him? He says, what prevents the one in the right to stand down and to make amends just to mend his relationship? Why? Why the ego? Why do I have an ego where I don't want to resolve the problem and say, no, he knows he's in the wrong? Allah commands us not to cut off relations. Your cousin's a pedo, all right, I understand. You know, that went a bit left field, I know. But other than that, I know I went to an extreme, that's what I'm saying. Other than that, resolve it. We got to a point where the mighty consumes the meek. You've taken a look at the world today. Look at all the people with might and force. They've been given a green light to kill anyone that doesn't have that ability. You know, I saw an article today. It was so satirical. And it wasn't meant to be satirical, but it was satire. It said that the honourable IDF, you know, as they like to look at themselves, threw these bodies off a building, and the IDF wants to investigate this malpractice. This is satire. This is satire. Same army that's indiscriminately killed, bombed hospitals, bombed schools, broken every law that exists, are investigating them and throwing dead bodies off a building because this is not within the guidelines of the IDF, the noble and majestic IDF, you know? Seriously. This is the world you live in. Indecency has prevailed. You know, everything, the sodomites will always push their agenda all the time. Whether you're wearing purple, any other color they want to steal from the rainbow, they'll steal it. And everything they want to push their agenda, and they make sure if you haven't had enough, it's, you know when a kid's full, the mother's still feeding them. That's all they do, just keep feeding you this. Indecency has been fed to people and it's become common. where people have, sometimes when I'm talking to someone and I call a sodomite, they get upset. People in our community, they go, well, why don't you use it by the actual, no, because that's the actual term. They follow the people. If you called me a Rafidi, I'd be happy. I reject the enemies of God. I'm a Rafidi. I'm proud. I love when someone calls me a Rafidi. If they call me a kafir because I ukfur bijibti wa taghut, I'm proud. Call me a kafir. If I reject the enemies of God, I'm proud. You're a sodomite. You follow the acts of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, that's what you are. If that's what you adhere to. And I will say that. Now, even killing babies has returned. Remember in the Jahiliyyah, they used to bury. They do this now. Abortions are killing babies. And just because it's hidden, like could you imagine, like I put you in a closet and then I shoot you, like an Oscar Pistorius, where he shot his wife in the toilet. He didn't see her. That's a bit like an abortion, killing someone while they're concealed. You're still killing a life. You're taking a life. Killing babies has returned. Alcohol and gambling are socializing. Any social circle, that's what happens now. We're not talking about the West. I'm talking about the Muslims. You look at the Shahr Ramadan al-Mubarak. Someone was asking me, my neighbor, he asked me about these parades that they do, these parties they do in Shahr Ramadan. He said, are these part of your religion? I said, no, I cannot wait till they close them down. These are satanic. The nights are not for, because all they become hookup joints. People meet up, fasad. And the Shahr Ramadan is a month of purity and worship. And you've changed what Shahr Ramadan is. The Muslims have done this. And then the Eid, same thing. It becomes one big party. And this is what's happened. And also now, people have become so confident they've become their own scholars. And I'll keep mentioning this. Over and over again, I meet so many people where they say, look, I don't need, people come up and say, I don't need to do taqleed. You do not understand what you're saying. Because if you tell me I don't need to do taqleed, and you call an ambulance, if something happens, I wish they bury you. Because why are you going to an expert? You should do yourself. Do CPR on yourself. You can do compressions on your own chest. If you sit there and think you can make and understand the laws yourself, then why don't you do that for everything else? Car breaks down, fix it yourself. Plumbing needs to be done, fix it yourself. Because when you want to do taqleed on your own, you might as well put your hands into a septic tank. Because you're living in a septic tank when you're following your own ways. And it's starting to spread amongst young people because they think that they know more than the scholars. Our fuqaha and our ulama, when you look at professionals, and I think a lot of people have done this to themselves. When you see someone who puts Sheikh Doctor or Sayyid Doctor, these are two different things. Your doctorate is one thing. Your scholarly lessons, you put the title of doctor when you're doing your practice. But when you're getting up as a sheikh or a sayyid, that title that you've got to our fuqaha, the levels that they've reached, they haven't studied 9, 10 years, 15 years. These people have dedicated their lives to study. To the point when you ask one of our ulama, what are you? Any of the Maraja ask them. He says, I am a student, talaba. Do you know that? They say, talaba. I am a student. And you look at the person, he's 90 years old, he's been studying for 70 odd years, and he says, I'm a student. And it's not like he's being humble, he genuinely believes he is a student. And then you get this guy who yesterday learned how to go to the toilet properly. I don't want to get too, let me try and keep it. And then they want to give you an opinion on jurisprudence. And he says, I read this book and I read that book. You know, the ones that tell you, oh, I'm a professional without credentials. This is one of the biggest problems in the Islamic world, where people are attacking the scholars and it becomes commonplace. And they say, how dare does this scholar say this when the Imam said that? And then you say, hold on, have you seen the other way that says the opposite of that? How does the Imam say this when the other Imam said that? You don't understand. Don't come and bring your own opinion. So what were they like at this time? Fatima al-Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayha says about Jahiliyyah, she says, وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَى حُفْرَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ, that you are on the edge of the pit of fire. Disbelief, polytheism existed at the time. Did you know at the time of Rasul, just to give you an idea, did you know in the Jahiliyyah, they used to do tawaf around the Kaaba without any clothes on? Yeah, that was Jahiliyyah. Did you know in the Jahiliyyah they had a god called Hubal made out of dates? And two of the companions were together and they were laughing. Guys, remember the days of Jahiliyyah? We used to eat our god when we got hungry. Really? You know, sorry Hubal, you got to take one for the team. You know, decide I got to eat him. Like seriously. In the Jahiliyyah, oh people, they were burying their newborn daughters for fear that if we went to war, our daughters would be taken captive. So let's bury them. They lived like this. Fatima Zahra alayha salam says, وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَى حُفْرَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ مَضْغَةَ الشَّارِبِ مضغة الشارب ونهزة الطامع. مضغة الشارب meaning that you were the drink for the thirsty. In other words, someone was giving you an idea. If someone was thirsty, you were the first opportunity that they drank. ونهزة الطامع, the opportunity of the greedy. You know when someone, basically, let me give you the words. ونهزة الطامع وقبصة العجلان وموطئ الأقدام. And I'll explain what they each mean. Nahzat al-Tama' means that someone that's greedy, you were the first opportunity. Okay? وَقَبْصَةَ al-Ajlan, basically if someone needs a piece of coal, that you were the first person they took it from. Say you were a blacksmith. And Mawti' al-Aqdam, and I'll explain what I mean by all this. Mawti' al-Aqdam means where people would tread. If they need to put their foot, I'll give you an example. They're very beautiful terms when I explain what I'm trying to say. You know when you're, say, rock climbing, where you put your foot in the easiest place to step. The most rigorous, most difficult, you won't put your foot. So in other words, Fatima says that you were the weakest link. If anyone wanted to do something, you know, it was you they did it to, the Arabs. They had a problem, the Arab they went for. Straight away, yeah, we've got a problem. You know, when someone wants to fight, have you ever noticed this in a fight? Antar, you know, the Antar, the epic that they talk about. Antar, in the past, they asked him, how were you able to defeat your enemy? He said it was simple. He said, I would enter the battlefield and I would look for the weakest one amongst them and I would kill him in the most ferocious way. I'd put fear into the hearts of the courageous. See, sometimes, you know, you see in a fight, someone will, if it's someone that is strong and fierce in the way, and if someone weak, they'll hit them straight away. And they go, oh, this guy bashed that guy and he gets a big reputation. All he hit was what? Someone he could have beat. The Arabs were that someone. They were the easiest one to hit. Anyone had a problem with them, they'd hit them. It's like the guy that comes to prison first day and everyone's taking advantage of him, taking things off him. He doesn't stand up for himself and they just keep doing it. That was the Arab. Never stands up for himself. So all this, she said to them, "Tashrabun at-taraq." You would drink from bogs and puddles. The bogs is in swamps and the worst water. وَتَقْتَاتُونَ الْقِدْ. In another hadith says, "Al-qidda wal-waraq," that you would eat jerked meat. When you say jerked meat, you know what what does she mean by jerked meat? You know when you eat jerky, what's jerky? Is jerky a meal that you would have? Jerky is truckies' meals. You know why? Because they're on the run and that's all they're going to get. They're not going to stop and get a 3-course meal. They get in, you've ever been in a service station that has jerky up there? That's all it was. It's a quick fix for someone. It's rubbish food. In fact, the Imam said, 2 things I would never put in my body, not in terms of halal things. So one of them, he says, jerked meat. Something you wouldn't even think of eating, but that's what they were eating. And the hadith says, al-qidda wal-waraq. Al-waraq was leaves. They would eat leaves. And then she said, تَخَافُونَ أَن يَتَخَطَّفَكُمُ النَّاسُ مِنْ حَوْلِكُمْ. That you were afraid. You know, there's people that are afraid of alien abductions. Aliens might abduct me. That these people were afraid of being abducted. They're afraid that someone come and get them. That's how deficient they felt. And then she says, فَأَنْقَذَكُمُ اللَّهُ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى بِمُحَمَّدٍ. Allah saved you with my father, she says, alayhi salam. My father made you on top. What happened? The Arabs were on top. They threw the Prophet behind them, the Qur'an behind them, and they focused on who? The ones that took power. Why? And that's who they follow, and all their leaders kept following. What happened? The decline of the Arabs. Till they became what? Look at them. Look at the way that they are. Could you imagine? I saw there was a friendly game last week between Italy and Israel. You know who scored the goal for Israel? A Muslim. An Arab scored the goal for Israel. And there was another Arab in the team. In fact, when Iran attacked to retaliate, who was defending Israel? The Arabs. Why? Who were they? These are the same people that followed the ones that ran from Uhud, the ones that ran from Khaybar, the ones that ran from Hunayn. And these are the ones that wrote the history of the Prophet. How did they write it? They wrote it like this. I'll give you an example. There's one hadith that says that Umar ibn al-Khattab came to Rasulullah, this is in Bukhari, and said, Ya Rasulallah, I did not pray my Asr prayers, and now it's Maghrib. Do you know what the Prophet says? Oh Umar, neither did I. Because Umar didn't pray Asr prayers, the Prophet doesn't pray it. To bring down the position of the Prophet. Could you imagine one of your ulama said they didn't pray Asr? Honestly, alim said they didn't pray Asr. Why say Asr? No one misses Asr. Like, you really need to be petty to miss Asr. Subh, someone might miss it. Asr, it's right smack bang in the middle of the day. The Prophet missed it because Umar missed it. And this is what they did. They brought the Prophet right down to the bottom in order to make the people see a different image as they see today. And that's why they see the Prophet in the manner they see him. Our duty is to give the real image of Rasulullah. I'm just going to give you one hadith and I'll end with this about Rasulullah. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When a woman asks Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam about the messenger of God, he says to her, ما أكل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله متكئا منذ بعثه الله عز وجل إلى أن قبضه وكان يأكل إكلة العبد ويجلس جلسة العبد. Said that the Prophet would never be muttaki'. Muttaki' means he would never rest, recline. He would never recline. This is Rasulullah. I'm just telling you his character. There's no one that can be like this. And he said he would never eat reclining. He would always sit like a servant. Some people, they'll sit in front of their present, their food, and you see their legs are stretched out in front of the food. They don't respect the food. Some people sit in front of their parents. I remember I went to someone's house once, and his kid was playing the PlayStation, and the people walked in, and the kid wasn't like a child. He was a teenager. The whole time he kept his back to everyone in the house. The whole time he kept his back to even his father and everyone. Didn't have respect of people present there. Their presence, salam alaikum, at least turn it off. You want to play, at least respect the presence of people. The measures, some people don't respect the measures as well. They enter the measures of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, they don't have respect for it. So when Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam was asked, وَلِمَا ذَلِكَ? Why would he, all right, maybe publicly I don't stretch out my legs. The Prophet didn't even do it when he was on his own. So that's his character. She said, وَلِمَا ذَلِكَ? Why was he like this? He says, تَوَاضُعًا لِلَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَ. He used to live in the presence of God. Like, you know, when you're at home and you say, I'm alone, you're not alone. You're with Allah and His angels. Rasulullah used to live with the presence of Allah. He lived like that. Someone that lives like that, does he miss Asr prayers? Someone that lives like that, I don't even want to go, if you go through the stories written about the Prophet, honestly, I don't blame people. You know when they make a movie about the Prophet or a drawing about the Prophet, mate, the sources they're given. No one gives the true story about the Prophet and to the people. So our duty tonight, I've spoken for 40 minutes and I want to end here, is to revive the remembrance of the Messenger of God and play a role in the restoration of the image of the Messenger of God. One of the brothers told me they wanted to write a biography. You don't need to do a biography like, say, Jafar Murtada al-Amili's 35 volumes, Sahih al-Sir and Abu. You don't need to make it that big. You could just get one aspect of the Prophet. Talk about the mercy of Rasulullah. You know the verse I introduced? Yuzakkihim. Tazkiyat Rasulullah. How did Rasulullah purify the people? Ta'aleem Rasulullah. How did Rasulullah alim al-kitab to the people? How did he teach them the book? Just one aspect and spread it. Now, not only in a book, you could do something even more simple. You know, like, I met a brother out west when I was in Majid Imam Rida, and he had these things he's got online. If you see, it says, I think it's Islam made easy, or Islamic lessons made easy, something like that. And he told me he's the one that did them. And I said, do you know how many times I've used these? Like, I've sent these links to people. You know, when you make a video, one of the sheikhs, I was telling him, he's got a video that he's made with tayammum and wudu. I go, do you know how many times I've sent this video to people? I go, you save us doing these videos. When you do stuff like this, then some people will send me the link and I'll say, look, I've done this. I keep this. And every time someone wants to know something about the Prophet, I will give it to them. And you would be spreading the true teachings of Rasulullah. And what Rasulullah was like. Because you know when people actually see, لو أن الناس علموا محاسن كلامنا لاتبعونا. If they know the merits of the words of Ahlul Bayt, they will follow Ahlul Bayt. The world around you doesn't know them. I swear to you they don't know them. They don't understand how Ahlul Bayt were. You go into a debate with someone, you guys notice how many of them quote false hadith all the time. You know whose fault that is? That's our fault. It's our fault that we haven't propagated, and this is your duty that you must put with yourself that I'm going to do something for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, especially youth. You got your school holidays coming up. If you don't want to do it, why not make one of your kids do it? Make them do something. Tell them, I'll give you, whoever does this project, I'll give him this as a reward. Put it online, spread it. Even if they write the simplest articles, those stories, a simple story about Rasulullah that people can learn from. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to have mercy on our deceased, especially our brothers and sisters that were martyred recently, and give patience to the families and cure all those that were injured by probably the biggest terrorist attack, I think, in a long time. And it was a blatant terrorist attack, but no white people were killed, so it's not really a terrorist attack anymore. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to cure our sick, all those that were injured. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give them patience, reward them greatly. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us victory over our enemies. And you need to understand that they too are feeling worse than you're feeling. They just have a good habit of concealing it. I reiterate this every time I get up. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to hasten the reappearance of our Master. This is all we need to ask for. Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi arwahuna fidah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Because who's going to be reading dua? I'll leave it for you to read dua at the end. Whoever's going to read it. Okay, so we ask Allah Azza wa Jal not to take any of us from here until He's pleased with us. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salli Allahumma ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.
Ahsant Mawlana, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and bless all of you for coming in attendance today. Inshallah, may Allah reward all of you. Inshallah, now we'll have some Anasheed by our brother Hussein Alawi. Please welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
على محمد وآل محمد. Hey, Nabi Muhammad is beyond human comprehension. His praise human minds will ever mention. He is the greatest proof of Allah's beings, each his creature, his eulogy does sing. He is the greatest teacher of mankind. All human qualities in him we can find. He taught us how to think and how to act, brought us out of myths and led to facts. The universe was created for his cause. Can I please get 3 of your loudest Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad? Muhammad. I'm going to do an English molded first because I got requested to do that. And then I'm going to do an Arabic one at the end. Salawat again. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Amid the confusion, the chaos and pain, a man emerged and Muhammad was his name. And walking with nothing but Allah as his aid, and the mark of a prophet between his shoulder blades. In a cave in Mount Hira, the revelation came. Read, O Muhammad, read in Allah's name. By the blessings of Allah be on Al-Mustafa. None besides him could be Al-Mushtaba. Muhammad, peace be upon his soul. The greatest of prophets, Islam, was his only goal. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi الطاهر. Let me hear your voice. محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله الطاهرين. محمد الله عليه وعلى آله الطاهرين. The greatest of prophets, Islam was his only goal. As his was a mission of the greatest task, there was only more degeneration. People clung to idol adoration. For all the nations he was Al-Mukhtar. So he was praised by Allah Al-Ghaffar, the bearer of glad tidings Al-Bashir, leading into light as Siraj Al-Munir. Muhammad, peace be upon his soul, the greatest of prophets, Islam was his only goal. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa آله الطاهرين. محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله الطاهرين. In handling the wicked he had the best of skill. He pacified with tolerance and goodwill. The best of morals he aimed to attain. He accomplished through suffering and pain, reviving Iman al-Mutadhakkir. He is known in the Qur'an as Al-Mudaththir. Only he was given the honor of Mi'raj. Unique was this glory to Muhammad as-Siraj. Muhammad, peace be upon his soul, the greatest of prophets, Islam was his only goal. Muhammad وعلى طاهرين. محمد الله وعلى الطاهرين. حياتك معجم أسرار، ملاذ الأهل أرض صار، حرائك موفق ضغار يا محمد. حياتك معجم أسرار، ملاذ الأهل أرض صار، حرائك موفق ضغار يا محمد. صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه. سمعني صوتك يلا. صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه. عزيزم صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه. طالع البدر علينا فعلى البدر السلام. أحمد خير البرايا خير من صلى وصام. وعليه الله صلى كلما رفع الحمام. وجب الشكر علينا أيها البدر التمام. أيها البدر التمام. أيها البدر التمام. أيها تمام. جنت وانت تصلي الملائك تستهم سما تمدلك أيها بدعائك تبتسم. والثاري وعينك توزع على نجم. محمد يا الحروفك بنت أحلى اسم. 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 شمس يم وجهك تضيع، صرت للبجهة تشريح. دابك دنيا تحتار يا محمد. صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه. I want to hear your voice. Allah صلى الله عليه صلى الله صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه. أشرق المحبوب شمسا من ثنية الوداع، لا يصلي الكون ساعدا ما دعا الله دعا. يا حبيب الله أهلا جئت بالأمر المطاع، جئتنا أهلا وسهلا مرحبا يا خير الداع، جئتنا أهلا وسهلا مرحبا يا خير الداع، جئتنا أهلا وسهلا مرحبا يا خير الداع. جنت راعي رسالة وجبل بالعاصفة، قلعت الجاهرية وزرعت المعرفة، اصطفاك الله لذلك صبحت المصطفى، تردر ما يثمن البشر ما يعرفه، كلامك نسمة إحساس، وجودك رحمة للناس، يا ما يطفئ النار يا محمد صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه صلى الله عليه. هلا مرحبا جبريل نادي بالنبي المرسل، لا حبيبا غير طه لا فتى إلا عليه، لا حبيبا غير طه لا فتى لا حبيبا غير طه لا علي. أيها المبعوث فينا في الزمان الأولين، جئت شرفت المدينة بكلام الأجمل، جئت شرفت المدينة بكمال الأجمل. يا قاموس القداسة ويسار ما نفهمه، كتاب الله حجالك رسائل مبهمة، يظل شانك ابتر يا مبعوث السما، لأن جل لجالك هدالك فاطمة، لأن جل لجالك هدالك فاطمة، لأن جل جلالك هدالك فاطمة، لأن جل جلاله هدالك فاطمة. مثل نسلك يجي منين يا جد الحسن وحسين، طحر وفهادك أطهار يا محمد. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. محمد وآل محمد، صلوات على محمد وعلى آل محمد، صلوات على آل محمد، صلوات على محمد وعلى آل محمد، محمد وعلى محمد، صلوات على محمد وعلى صلوات على محمد. يا الله بنبي عربي ورسول مدني، وأخيه أسد الله المسمى بعلي، وبزهراء بطول وبأم ولدتها، وبسبطين وشبلين هو نجن زكي، صلوات على محمد محمد، صلوات على محمد محمد، صلوات على محمد. يا الله وبالسجاد وبالباقر والصادق حقا، وبموسى وعلي وتقي ونقي، صلوات على محمد، صلوات على محمد. سمعني صوتكم، صلوات على محمد آل محمد على محمد. وبالهادي وبالعسكر وبالهادي وبالعسكر وبالهادي وبالعسكر وبالهادي وبالعسكر، والحجة القائم بالحق.